Hey, what is going on, Fan Clan? Welcome back to the channel. My name is dannyphantump. Happy Tuesday. Hope you guys are all doing well. Hope you're having a really good week so far. I want to talk to you today about Paldea Evolved because I've had a lot of questions. I know Paldea Evolved, not necessarily everybody's cup of tea. You'll have to let me know in the comment section down below what you think of Paldea Evolved. If you've opened some, maybe it's grown on you a little bit. Personally, I love the set. I love the artworks. I love the cards, the storytelling, all these new illustration rares. Absolutely amazing. But there's been a lot of confusion what's going on with the pricing, and I've had a lot of questions, but I think I have some answers, or at least some opinions that might lead to some answers, and you can let me know if you disagree with my opinions, if you do agree with my opinions, what you think. Maybe you think it's something completely different, but we've had some situations in Paldea Evolved where singles crashed like crazy and then drove up in price a lot, which is really weird. That's only happened on a handful of singles so far. For the most part, a lot of these singles have kind of stayed the course, like what we've seen in different sets in the past. That's why I haven't recorded a whole video about price crashes, because it's expected in a lot of these new sets. I think it's important to look at how far the crash is, what percentage you're looking at, because I think that's indicative of how a set is going to perform long term. But for the most part, nothing really that pops out at me when it comes to Paldea Evolved, except for the cards that I've had a lot of questions on. So I think to kind of preface things, it's very important to remember the most important thing is Pokemon is extremely cyclical, and what that means, it's just going to continue to repeat patterns all over the place. What we've seen in the past kind of happens again in the present, in the future. You're going to see it a lot, and Pokemon has been in a very weird growth pattern for quite some time right now. Now, we've had consistent growth where it's continuing to go up, and then kind of plateaued right around the celebrations era right there, and then died down a lot. So it died down considerably after that 25th anniversary set came out. We had Fusion Strike come out. That one didn't do too well, and then things started to peak back up a little bit with Brilliant Stars because we had another Charizard set. So it died down and then started rising a little bit. We had Lost Origin, we had Astral Radiance, those did okay, and then we had Silver Tempest, which was kind of another peak before we switched gens into a new generation of Scarlet and Violet. Now, Crown Zenith held people over a lot, but Scarlet and Violet did not live up to expectations for a lot of people. So a lot of people opened up some of Scarlet and Violet and then kind of backed off a little bit. And then Paldea Evolved comes out. And right now, Pokemon, as far as popularity goes, probably at its lowest point since it's been for the past few years. A lot of people who are interested in collecting, a lot of people who are interested in playing the game, kind of biding some time right now, because we did get a lot of news about Pokemon 151. So people are saving up their money for Pokemon 151. They're saving up their money for Obsidian Flame. So they're just like, I'm going to skip Paldea Evolved. I might open up a little bit. And because of that, Paldea Evolved was purposely short printed by the Pokemon Company because they knew it wasn't going to be as popular of a set. And even with allocations being down and Paldea Evolved being printed less than what we've seen from previous sets, it's still extremely cheap when it comes to booster boxes, when it comes to cracking some of this. So Paldea Evolved, very cyclical with what we've seen in the past with sets like Crimson Invasion, with sets like Steam Siege. At the beginning, Fates Collide didn't do too well. So it's very cyclical what we've seen in some of these patterns. But we're going to look at some of these, and that way you can stop looking at my face for some reason. We're going to start off by looking at Iono. I've had a lot of questions about Iono. This card is completely different than Miriam and should not be compared to Miriam. And the reason why is because this card is playable. So I want you to picture a pyramid right here. A pyramid that makes up all Pokemon enthusiasts. I'm talking about Pokemon TCG collectors. I'm talking about VGC players. I'm talking about people who just collect plush. People who just like Pokemon in general, making up this entire pyramid of Pokemon fans all together. And then you have this large chunk right here of collectors, of people who just enjoy the artwork, of people who maybe are investors, or people who collect the cards. And then you have a very small crevice down at the bottom of players, of competitive players, people who travel around at regional events, people who play casually at their league, people who enjoy playing the actual card game. Now, for a long time, I made this mistake, and this is important to remember. I was very fascinated and very immersed with the Pokemon TCG community from a competitive standpoint. I went to regional events, I went to state events, I went to local leagues. I really enjoyed playing the game. I still love playing the game, but I kind of got lost in this circle of competitive TCG players, and that's who I interacted with all the time. And because of that, I kind of catered all my thoughts and opinions to what was going on in the competitive TCG market, not realizing how big the collectible CGC, the collectible side of things was from the outside, because I was so immersed on the inside of this competitive TCG. It's important for collectors to also realize that that there are a lot of people that play the game. And every once in a while, this is important, every once in a while, that competitive TCG side dictates market pricing on a lot of playable cards. That's why we have bulk videos. That's why we have videos where we go over cards that you want to remove from your bulk, because a lot of competitive TCG players, even though it makes up such a small portion of overall Pokemon fans, they can impact the market greatly. We've seen it in the past with cards like Paralyzing Gaze Zorua. We've seen it with Custom Catcher. We've seen it with Volcanions in the past. We've seen it with Drizziles. We've seen it with Metal Goggles. We've seen it with a lot of cards in the past that should be, 20, 25 cent cards that you would assume are extremely cheap shoot up in $4 or $5 a piece, even higher than that, because they're staples in the deck. And what that means is every competitive player needs to own 3 or 4 copies of it, so that way they can play it in their deck. Sometimes multiple copies, multiple play sets, because they want to build multiple decks at the same time. That's what separates Iono from Miriam. Iono is an extremely playable card. A lot of people compare it to N, which was so popular in the format for very, very long. Same thing with Rocket's Admin. It's a little bit different than both of those cards, but Iono, extremely popular in the competitive TCG, and that's why this is going to have such long-lasting legs for a very long time. You're talking about even the uncommon basic trainer card selling right now for $1.40, $1.50 a piece. It's going to continue selling for that price point and might even go up in price as it becomes less and less available, because Pokemon players are going to continue to need these in their deck moving forward. It's a great deck disruption. It's a great card for searching out more cards. It's just a great staple for a lot of players to be using in their deck. And because of that, you're not seeing this drop immediately down to $70, $80 like what we saw from Miriam. Now, it did fall considerably down to that 101.96. A lot of people jumped on it at that point. Now, I do think this is going to continue to go down. I don't think it's going to live up to the 132.77 that we see right now, but I don't expect it to fall down to $50, $60 like what we see from Miriam, at least not for quite some time, because this card is going to be continued to be bought up, because demand for this card is going to be very high. A lot of competitive players do like to bling out their deck, and they do like to play the highest rarity stuff. Not all of them, but some of them do. And if a card dips below $100 and they say, hey, compared to Magic the Gathering, this is much, much cheaper, I'm just going to play this and I'm going to buy this card, then these cards are going to sell a lot better. So Iono, much different than Miriam in the fact that it's extremely playable, whereas Miriam isn't playable, not nearly as playable as what Iono is. So you see this selling for $175-ish about right when the set released, right before the set released, and dropped down opening weekend to about 102. A lot of people thought it was going to fall a lot further than that even, and then started going up in price, jumped back up to about 150, and now it's kind of settled right around 130. It should stay at that point, might go down a little bit. You might see this come back down to close to that $100 mark, but I don't see it going too far below $100 in the immediate future, because it is so playable. If we look at a card like Magikarp, and I'm going to explain this one in a couple minutes, at least my theory, my hypothesis, because this card is beautiful. A lot of people, this is kind of their chase card, but I think this all goes back to demand for Paldea Evolved and the fact that this set just isn't being opened as much. But this card, very, very crazy. You can see it selling for about $20, $22 right around release. It dropped down to $22.22, which was its low point, and then it skyrocketed like crazy, selling currently for $78.08. So this is a little bit higher than what it's actually selling for. It's going to go down a little bit more. It's going to continue to drop, but it did hit $83.16, but much higher than what a lot of people thought it was going to be. Same thing with Tyranitar. Tyranitar at one point in time was down to $18.38, jumped up to $46.22 not too far after release. A lot of copies being bought out. People thought, hey, maybe the market is getting manipulated a little bit. I don't think that's actually the case with Paldea Evolved, and I'll explain why in just a minute here. But you can see this card has settled down a little bit, should continue to drop a little bit more. $31.16 is where it's currently sitting. And then we've got the Raichu. This is a beautiful card. This Raichu is exactly how I've felt over the last few days. But dropping down to $10.44 right around release day before shooting back up to that $29.97 mark. Now it's backed off a little bit, sitting at $24.14, but still way higher than what it was on release day. Now, why is this happening, Fanny? Here's why I think it's happening. So Paldea Evolved, like we talked about before, all goes back to supply and demand. So there's just not a whole lot of demand for Paldea Evolved. And because of that, not a whole lot of packs that are being opened. This is a snip from TCG Player that goes over the listings that are available for purchase right now for Scarlet and Violet base. So if you're looking at this Miriam right now, which is selling for about $52, there's 141 copies that are available for you to purchase. There's 152 Gardevoirs, which is selling for about $34. The Miraidon EX is selling for $29. $29, 172 of those available. Koraidon EX special illustration rare, there's 180 of those available for about $20. The Miriam regular full art selling for about $20 as well. There's 142, and then the Terra Gyarados selling for roughly $17.50. There's 152. So fairly available for a lot of people to purchase, and because of that, a lot of people kind of buying them. It's a race to the bottom all the time for TCG Player because you want to get your cards sold. That's the goal when you list on TCG Player. So you're constantly trying to one up the lowest seller on TCG Player by pricing things maybe a penny lower or a few cents lower. So that way it drives people to your listing rather than somebody else's listing. And because of that, it's constantly driving this market price down because there's so much that is available. But if you look right now at Paldea Evolved singles, much different, much less that is available on the market. And part of that is because demand is high because the set did just release. So a lot of these cards, people might be FOMOing over a little bit, and that might be driving the price up a little bit. So they do want to be able to capture these cards while they still can. But I took these snips a couple days ago of the available listings on Paldea Evolved singles. And if you look at Chine Pao, for example, probably the most competitive card in the set, a very popular card for a lot of players, selling right now for about $35. There's 58 listings currently available for that card. The Tyranitar selling at $32. There's 67 listings available. The Raichu, only 44 listings available, selling for $29. The Iono special illustration, there's 52 for, and the Iono full art, there's 43 listings at $46. But then if you look at the Magikarp, only 32 listings available at $83.22. So as that number continues to grow, as that amount of listings continues to grow, that market price should continue to drop. But because the listings are so less available, the market price is staying higher because people want to be able to purchase these cards, but it's not as much of a race to the bottom because there's not as much competition listing these singles because there's just not as much being opened. A lot of companies didn't open as much Paldea Evolved because it wasn't selling for as much. The singles weren't selling for as much. The pull rates on this set a little bit more difficult for individual cards because there are so many ultra rares that are printed in this set, especially if you compare it to Scarlet and Violet base. There's about 33% more of every rarity in this set. So if you're looking for that Magikarp, it's 33% less likely that you're going to pull that illustration rare from Paldea Evolved than pulling it from Scarlet and Violet base, pulling a specific card from Scarlet and Violet base, because there's 33% more illustration rares in Paldea Evolved than Scarlet and Violet base. So I hope that all makes sense. That's my opinion, my hypothesis as to why these cards are kind of doing what they're doing. You can let me know in the comment section what you think, but we're not done yet. We're going to go over the actual expected value of Paldea Evolved booster boxes. This is something that I really like to do pretty much with every single set release because I think it's important to kind of get a gauge for that fun cost of what you're looking for. Paldea Evolved, not nearly as bad as what a lot of people are giving it credit for. Again, not as much interest in this one, but for the most part, prices are actually holding fairly steady. If you look at the regular arts over here, all of the regular arts, the double rares that are in Paldea Evolved, pretty much everything selling for about bulk pricing currently, with the exception of a couple of them. Squawkbilly EX, for example, selling for $3, and the Chine Pao EX, $10 on that one. And again, that's because it is so competitive until a tin comes out or anything like that. This one should continue to do well depending on how it does at the national event that's happening next week in the International Championships in Columbus, Ohio. That's happening next weekend. And then we have the World Championships in August in World. So depending on how Chine Pao performs at those events, this card could go up or down. That's that little sliver of competitive market. That's what the competitive players have on the market. That's the impact that they have. So you could see any of these kind of pop off if they do decently at these events. You might see something like Bellybolt do well. You might see something like Chi Yu do well. You might see something like Wu Qing do well. I don't know if that's going to be the case. I think Chine Pao is probably leaps and bounds ahead of everything else, but also going back to Scarlet and Violet base, something like Gardevoir EX, for example, does get a lot of help from this set. So Gardevoir EX could be a card to look out for moving forward, a regular art moving up from, $3, $4 to $6, $7 a copy instead because of competitive play. If we look at the ultra rares, these are the full arts in the set. Again, not a whole lot above bulk pricing, but there are some decent ones to call out. The Chine Pao selling for $15 currently. The Boss's Orders selling for $7. There's been so many different printings of Boss's Orders. The Gets is very, very cool, but so many different printings, so many different availabilities. The Grusha selling for $6, and the Iono, this is just the regular full art, selling for $47. Again, because of its competitive playability, $47, much different than what we saw from that full art Miriam. If we go down to the illustration rares, again, so many of them. You have that Magikarp really setting the bar high at $78, but you still have cards like Sprigatito selling for $9. You still have cards like Frigibax selling for $10, Baxcalibur selling for $13, the Raichu selling for $24, Miss Magia selling for $7. These are prices that I just pulled the other day. Tyranitar selling for $31, Mousehold selling for $10. So lots of all over the place when it comes to illustration rares. Now you're going to be getting 3 of these per box, so it could be 3 of the bulkier ones. You could get like 3. You could get Gotharita, you could get Quaxwell, and you could get Paldea, or you could get Knockley, which wouldn't obviously make a whole lot of value up in your box. But we're going to talk about the averages in just a second here. If you look at the special illustration rares, obviously Iono kind of leading the gold standard there at $133, but you do have some that still aren't doing too bad. Shine Pow selling for $34, Chi-Yu selling for $19, you have Skeledirge selling for $17 currently, Meowscarada selling for $19 currently, the special illustration rare Boss's Orders selling for $19, the Dendra selling for $24, the Grusha selling for $21. If we look at the hyper rares, the gold cards that are in this set, not a whole lot that's selling extremely well, but the Chine Pow is selling for $16, Super Rod for $15, and the Superior Energy Retriever for $10, and the Water Energy for $12. That's it as far as double digits go. People just not as excited about gold cards currently as what they were in the past. Sets like Chilling Reign, where you had the Snorlax, that kind of set the bar extremely high. Now we just really haven't had gold cards perform as well anymore, despite being extremely hard to pull. Now the important thing to remember is that when we look at pull rates for sets like this, we're not looking at pull rates for individual cards, because pull rates for individual cards don't really exist. It's going to be the same difficulty to pull this special illustration rare Boss's Orders as it is going to be to pull the Quaquaville EX, because they're both special illustration rares. So I don't think Pokemon is actually printing individual cards less. I think they're actually just printing by rarity. So the illustration rares, now we talked about batching. That's a whole nother theory that we're not going to talk about in this video at all. But the likelihood of you pulling a Baxcalibur is the same as the likelihood of you pulling a Tropius. It's just these are going to be printed the same level. If we look at the actual amount of value that you're going to be getting out of your booster box, you're going to be getting roughly 12.27 hits out of your booster box of Paldea Evolved, with 4.86 of those, roughly 5 of them being those double rares, those regular Art EXs. That's 1 in every 7 packs. Your average price is $2.53. That's your average value for each regular EX card. So that means in total, you're going to be pulling about $12.29 worth of value when it comes to those double rares out of your Paldea Evolved booster box. If we look at those full arts, those ultra rares, you're going to be pulling on average of 2.37 per booster box of Paldea Evolved. Now that's 1 out of every 15 packs. What that means is an average value of $5.77 per full art. That's what they average to, is going to give you roughly $13.68 worth of value out of your booster box. If we look at illustration rares, you're going to be getting 3 out of your booster box. I did see some booster boxes where you pulled less than 3. I did see a couple booster boxes that you pull more than 3, but for the most part, the average is going to be 3 per booster box. I know Pokemon booster boxes aren't seeded, but I think with the Scarlet and Violet generation, this is as close as we're ever going to get to seeded booster boxes. 1 out of every 12 packs should pull you an illustration rare. Because of that Magikarp, because of that Raichu, because of that Tyranitar, the average value per illustration rare is a little bit higher. So you're looking at $8.31 in average value per illustration rare. What that means, since you're pulling 3 of them per booster box, is you're going to average about $24.93 worth of value out of your illustration rares. For your special illustration rares, you're pulling about 1.31 per booster box. Some of them you'll pull 2 special illustration rares. Some of them you'll only pull 1 because you also pull a gold card. That's 1 out of every 27 packs. The average value right now, because of that Iono, is about $24.60 is your average value that you're going to get in special illustration rare value out of your Paldea Evolved booster box. What that means is your Paldea Evolved booster box should have about $32.33 worth of value from special illustration rares. And then your hyper rares, you're getting 0.73 per booster box, or 0.73 from that gold card. So almost 1. Most booster boxes that you open up, you should get 1. However, you might get 2 special illustration rares instead. That's 1 out of every 49 packs. Your average price is $9.44 per hyper rare. That means your booster box of Paldea Evolved on average should have $6.88 worth of value out of it. Fanny, what is the this all mean? What does this break down to? Well, what this means is you're going to be getting roughly $90.11 worth of value when it comes to pulls out of your Paldea Evolved booster box. Now, we did this same experiment when we looked at Scarlet and Violet base about a week after the set released, and this is higher than what we saw from Scarlet and Violet base. So your value of hits is going to be a little bit higher than what we saw from Scarlet and Violet. The difference is these booster boxes are actually selling for less. Your ancillary value, you're going to be getting about $10. This is your bulk rares, your bulk haulers, your bulk reverse haulers, but also those Ionos that you pull that are selling for about $1.50 to $2 a piece. So this number might actually be a little bit low. I just went with $10 for convenience, for simplicity. But $10 of value from your ancillary cards. You should be able to get a little bit more than that. That means your total value of what you're getting out of your booster box is about $100.11. If we look at the actual market price for a Paldea Evolved booster box right now, you can find them for about $107. If you buy them by the case, you can find them for considerably cheaper. That means your fun cost, we call it fun cost because you sit down, you open up a booster box, you're expecting to lose money right away. You should never open up a booster box expecting to pull more than the booster box is worth. That's just gambling. That's just crazy talk. But you're looking at about losing about $7 every time you open up a Paldea Evolved booster box, which is actually really, really good considering what we've looked at in the past, especially with sets like Evolving Skies and Fusion Strike, where you are expected to lose a lot more unless you pull one of those super high chase cards. $7.06 for fun cost is what you're looking at by opening up a booster box, which really isn't bad at all. Paldea Evolved, a much better set than what I think a lot of people are giving it credit for, selling at a decent point right now. Now, we'll see what happens over the next couple weeks. Prices will continue to drop as more stock becomes available, but it's definitely something to kind of keep your eye on moving forward, especially as we wait for Pokemon 151, as we wait for Obsidian Flames. Maybe Paldea Evolved, not such a bad set to kind of dip your toes into a little bit and kind of get a feel for the set. It's a lot of fun to open. I really like the artworks on it, but you can let me know what you think in the comment section down below. I'm going to stop talking because I'm going to have to cut out all these coughs that I have done during the video, which is such a pain. But thank you guys so much for taking the time. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a like and a comment because it does go a long way for the video. Share the channel. You guys know what to do. You guys are awesome already. So thank you so much for everything. I'll talk to you again in a couple days. Until then, peace.